Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about silly myths and silly comments, and the main one being you can't use Micro Four Thirds equipment professionally. And we're going to talk a little bit about how stuff like that gets started, because it's mainly because of the internet, which we all know and love, right? Depending on what sites you're talking about. As far as how things like this get started, I'm going to preface things with how these things get started. And they get started because people aren't critical about what they see and hear on the internet. I think the problem is people take things at face value. They see a comment or say something, they don't think too much about it. They go, oh, wow, that's interesting. I was raised by teachers. I have a scientific education, graduate level science education. Did research after that. Got into lab sales after that. But one of the things that I had drilled into my head is not accepting things at face value. That always asking for proof, always asking for evidence. So let me kind of recap some of the things that I think have contributed to the myth of Micro Four Thirds not being a professional caliber, as well as other silly myths. Not long ago, I watched a YouTube video, and I think it was one of the fairly well-known photography influencers, and they were talking about traveling light, but they were also talking about using cameras for professional purposes. And they made the statement that you need to use APS-C or larger. Actually, somebody called them on it in the comments about Micro Four Thirds. And I think that person actually was using Micro Four Thirds professionally. So there's that. There was another article I read a few weeks back on one of the photo sites. Can't remember. It might have been Petapixel. Might have been F-Stoppers. And it was complimentary of Micro Four Thirds. And then you scroll down to the comments. And some commenter called Micro Four Thirds users dead enders. Now, my opinion about photography is that, number one, don't knock it unless you've tried it. Number two, don't look down your nose at other people's equipment choices. If you're secure in your choices, then why do you have to denigrate somebody else's choices? Doing that indicates to me that you are insecure. You're an insecure person. And we all know people who are so insecure they have to put everybody else down. It's rather common, especially in the United States these days. Another little anecdote, probably mentioned in an earlier video, but this one's, and I've seen commenters state that they've had this happen to them. This is years ago, pre-digital. I'm out at the time shooting probably with Canon EOS A2E. That was what it was called in North America. It was the EOS 5 outside North America. That's where the 5D comes in, because it was sort of slotted into that same market space. And I'm out, and I got a tripod because I'm probably shooting Fujichrome Velvia, which was, slow. And this guy comes up to me. I don't even think he had a camera with him. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, Canon, why aren't you shooting Nikon? They're so much better. The lenses are so much better," which was really not true. Hadn't been true for a long time. And what are you gonna do? I was just like, yeah, well, I like Canon, and was probably fairly curt with him, and he left. A little while later, the actual nature preserve that I was shooting in, they have an organization that supports them, and they asked me to come in and do a presentation of my transparencies that I'd shot. And I did, and guess who shows up? And I think this guy must have forgotten about that previous incident, because I'm showing, these transparencies and little slideshow, and I'm showing some macro work that I did with the original EF 100 macro, which was a really heavy, clunky lens. Really slow focusing. that's why you manually focused it. And this guy, he goes, what kind of lens did you shoot that with? And I said, oh, it was a Canon 100 millimeter macro. He got up and left. He walked out. You know. So, you know, it's fanboyism. It's silly. It's stupid. People shouldn't do it, but they're never going to stop. Saw another comment that I saw that essentially would start a rumor. I mean, this is how rumors get started. Was on a video, again, a few weeks back, a video about the Leica Deluxe 8, which is pretty much a Panasonic Lumix LX100 Mark II with a nicer screen and a nicer viewfinder and Leica software, and there might have been a couple other things that they did. And this commenter says, well, I read today that Leica will not allow Panasonic to make a version of the Deluxe 8. And they went on to say, Panasonic uses lens elements that fail QC in their lenses. I want to know where you read this, because after I read that comment, I'm going, what? Holy crap. So I go and I'm doing all kinds of searches trying to find that, wherever that article, comment, wherever it was. Couldn't find it. And you got to really wonder, come on, does anybody really think that Leica would allow Panasonic to put their brand name on lenses if Panasonic routinely uses substandard glass in their lenses? I have never run across a non-Leica branded Lumix lens that seems to have any horrible issues, other than, you know, things that probably go along for the ride, like the 14-140. Achromatic aberration at wide angles in the corners. That's just probably part of the lens design. So, now getting to professional use of Micro Four Thirds. That's just so silly. I have a friend, lives just the next block over from where we are, and he's a professional videographer. Travels, does some international travel. Currently uses a GH6 and a G7. He's planning on getting a GH7. Professional use. There's a YouTube channel that I watch from time to time. It's called the F-Stops Here. I think the guy's name is John. He shoots all kinds of different equipment. Leicas, I think Nikon, maybe Fuji, I forget which, but he tried an OMD, OM1 Mark II, and Olympus Pro lenses. Working with models, amazing work. And he's kind of saying to people, I know how you guys feel about this system, but it's great. And it is. Micro Four Thirds is very good. The sensors are very good now. The sensors are probably better than the Canon full frame and APS-C sensors that I used, as far as things like shadow, noise, and such. Dynamic range. Canon wasn't known for dynamic range 10 years ago. So, as far as my use, I have yet to have anybody question my use of these cameras. I have used them for headshots and portraits. I've used the 42.5 f1.7 for that, and people are perfectly fine with the background blur. Don't really need anything shallower. Recently, as a photojournalist, I had an assignment. It was kind of a major one. A lot of times I just go and I have to take a few quick shots. Submit about 12. This one was, my paper group puts out an annual restaurant magazine. And so myself and a reporter and actually people from the advertising department put this thing together where we wrangled up some chefs from the local area and got them to a neutral kitchen, which is actually a shared kitchen space in River Forest. Don't know how common that is. Everybody knows about shared office spaces. This is a shared kitchen space. So like catering companies use it. they're working out of their house and they don't have a kitchen at home appropriate for doing catering, they'll use that space. So I had to wrangle those folks up and do the shoot for the cover and then do individual portraits for the magazine. And what we did was we had the advertising people there because we traded advertising space for the chefs agreeing to be photographed. So, and each one of the chefs got a little profile in there. So what I'm going to do is here's the cover. So I'll put that up. I'm going to link in the description to the actual issue. If you go to page 8, that's where the profiles are. So there are little portraits of each chef. And by the way, if you're in this area, check those restaurants out. They're great. So wrapping this up, yeah, there are these silly things about that you see online. Learn to be discriminating. Learn to think critically. When somebody says, I heard this, or I read this, or blah, 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 where did they read that? Where did they see that? Who says this? Because really it's just hearsay, unless they can specifically point to a source that says, yeah, this is true. Well, that's, I think, enough for today. If this was helpful to you, interesting, pop the like button. That's a big help to me. If you have any insights on this, any questions, comments, please leave them down below. I try to respond to all of those. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.